Hey everyone, I'm T Frank and I'm finally back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about why I bought the Canon EOS R at the end of 2020 for use in 2021. I am a Canon RP user, so I think my perspective may be a little bit different from the perspective that I've seen out there on YouTube. So without further delay, let's go ahead and jump into my reasons for buying this camera. The first reason that I picked up this camera is because it fit my needs and my budget. A lot of times I think we see a lot of the latest gear and think that we have to get that. So you have the R5, you have the R6, and those cameras are very pricey right now. And if there's anything that I learned from buying cameras, you kind of just don't want to get it as soon as it's released. That gives the company time to fix some issues that the camera may have, and then that also gives you time to get some really good deals. So I actually picked up the Canon EOS R when they had a refurbished deal. Canon was selling this for $1,200. After taxes, it came out to be about $1,300, and in my honest opinion, I think that is a great buy. I actually paid less money for my R than for my RP, and that's, after taxes. But anyways, I think it's really important that you know what your needs are and your budget is, and you stay within that limit. And the next reason I picked up this camera was that I needed a tool to make money with. Right now I'm using the Canon RP, and my husband and I, we've actually been getting more photography gigs. So with both of us shooting, I really like the look of full frame, so I wanted 2 full frame cameras. And at first I decided I was actually gonna pick up another RP because I had a really crazy deal on one. I got one for about $687, but when I started thinking about it, I wanted a few extra features that the R has, which I'll probably talk about those a little bit later in this video. But anyways, I really just think that at this time, this pandemic is going on, and it's been going on for a while. I think you really need to make sure that you have multiple streams of income. So we're both fully employed, with an employer, but we also do a little freelance work on the side, and that allows us to make more money and just, have that extra stream of income during this time, because you just really never know. So I really see this camera as an investment, for my husband and I, in our business. So I definitely think that's a solid reason to pick this up. Another reason I picked this camera up is for the battery life. I really think that this battery life coming from the RP is pretty solid. I've heard a lot of people say that the battery life isn't good on the R, and I really think it depends on the camera that you're coming from. So, a lot of people, they might be coming from a camera with much better battery life. So for this, they deem it as poor. However, if you're coming from the RP, you're using that small Rebel-like battery. So this is going to be an improvement for you. Another reason I picked this up is for photography. Like I said earlier, like my husband and I, we've been doing a lot more photography, and this camera has a 30.3 megapixels. If it isn't, I'll put it up somewhere. And I know it's not always about the megapixels, but this camera does produce some really good pictures. And this is something, I'm just gonna add this on in addition to this point. I really didn't notice on the RP until I got the R how much better the LCD, like the resolution on the screen is. I'm gonna look that up as well, but it is definitely a lot better than on the RP. But I'm really impressed with the pictures with this, so I feel like I'm really gonna get some really good pictures, and I'm excited for photography with this camera. Now, as far as the burst rate, it's not any 14 frames per second or anything like that. It's actually around 8 frames per second. And that's not really fast, but for what I shoot, I'm not really shooting any fast moving subjects. I like to think my kid is kind of fast, but he's not 14 frames per second fast. Like, I don't need that type of speed. So for me, this camera fits my needs perfectly. All right, so as for video, this camera is still pretty solid in that department. For me, it is. It shoots 1080p. You do have 4K. I'm sure you know by now it does have a 4K crop, which I actually don't mind the crop, and I'll tell you why. Because they have dual pixel autofocus. With dual pixel autofocus, that is just like my biggest thing that I need on this camera in 4K. But for me, I normally shoot in 1080p, and if I do shoot in 4K, I do feel that I can kind of work around that crop. So for me, this is solid. It also has all eye and IPB options on here, which I think they removed from the R6 if I'm not mistaken. And I know that a lot of people are going back and forth where a lot of people don't really understand the difference between those two and they think that you can't see the difference. I think just for me, if it was in the camera before, why wouldn't it be in the successor? Like, I don't understand why they would take it out of the R6 if it's in the R. So that's just my thing, but I think for video, it does a great job. And this camera does have all of the frame rates that I pretty much need in this camera. However, it does have 120 frames per second and it shoots that in 720p. I do kind of wish that that was 1080. However, looking at my style of shooting, I'm noticing that I really do like the look of 60 frames per second. I've seen 120 frames per second, but I'm one of those people that believes that that shouldn't be overused, and there's a time and a place to use the 120 frames per second. And just looking at my style of shooting, I probably really don't even need to use 120 frames per second. I probably just want it in the camera, you know, to future-proof the camera, but honestly, right now, 60 frames per second is good enough for me. Another reason for picking up this camera is that it has C-Log in it. So I think for me, I'm still early in my career as far as learning how to color grade, and I have never had C-Log in any of my Canon cameras before. You know, Canon kind of doesn't put that in their lower end cameras, which I wish they did, like Sony does. You know, Sony has that in a lot of their cameras, their lower end cameras, so you can kind of get used to color grading and really pushing the colors and getting the colors that you want. So I'm actually excited to learn about color grading just a little bit more. So I'm happy that it's in the R because I have the RP and it's not in the RP. So that is another reason for picking up this camera. Another reason that I went for the R is that it has protection for the sensor when you take off the lens, and I think this is so clutch. I really wish that they had this on the RP. I don't understand why they didn't put it on the RP, but I do think having this gives me peace of mind. I don't know how people shoot these videos and have the sensor out because I'm overly paranoid, and I'm usually trying to get that lens on or the cover on the camera as soon as I can. So I really like having this feature on the R. And then pretty much the last reason why I picked this camera up is because I'm already in Canon's ecosystem. I got a lot of Canon cameras, got a lot of Canon lenses, and I think it just complements the RP quite well. So when my husband and I are shooting, we can actually shoot using these, and we're starting to invest more in RF lenses. So I just think that this is, you know, a no-brainer for me. I think if you can get this camera for under $1,700, I think it is a steal. I know the R5 and the R6 and whatever else is coming out, but I think a lot of times you have to sit back and ask yourself, what camera do I need? What camera is gonna fit my needs? And what camera is gonna fit my budget? And for me, the R was that camera. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. I'm T Frank, and I will catch you guys in my next video.